So maybe you find yourself sabotaging the moment that you hit success. Maybe you find yourself working towards a certain point in your life, working towards a certain idea that once we hit this number, or once we get this house, or once we get this car, or once we escape this situation, then I will be happy, then things will be okay. But the moment that things start to get a little bit comfortable, the moment that you start to hit that success, you are pulling yourself back. You notice that you start self-sabotaging, and before you know it, you are back at a certain point, all the way in the ground, or there comes a certain moment where you decide, damn, I need to change. And you start to change. You realize this is enough. I can't do this. And you decide to change yourself. You decide to temporarily reinvent yourself. And you do. And you get back up and you start grinding, you start working, you start doing it. And you start working your way, and you start working and being disciplined. And then you hit success. Maybe your success looks a little bit different this time. Maybe it looks the same. And then slowly but surely, subconsciously, you start to feel empty in that success. You start to understand that that success kind of feels unfamiliar, and you start to slowly sabotage yourself like again, until you are at a certain point again where panic hits you and realization hits you, and you're like, damn, I'm back here, I need to change. And you start to change again. And the cycle just continues. I'm going to share my screen. This is the self-sabotaging cycle for a lot of high performers who haven't done identity work, guys, who don't understand the identity that they are currently operating on. And I'm going to show you what it exactly is. So this is exactly what the phase, the cycle is that high performers, that I see a lot of high performers go through, is you work your way up to success in the beginning. Whenever you start your first business or whatever it is, most of the time this comes down here because you want to either escape a certain situation, right? You don't want to be poor. You don't want to, you've been whatever. Someone in your family needed surgery, you didn't have money, and you decided like, I'm never going to be broke again. I'm going to make a shit ton of money. Perhaps you were conditioned by culture, by family. You were expected to do something, or perhaps you are just mimicking something that you see online. Andrew Tate, Iman Gadzhi, I don't know. You see people, you're like, I want that too, right? So you decide to do some work. You decide, I'm going to fucking invest in myself. Fuck the 9 to 5, fuck all this shit. And you decide, or whether you're not even in this phase, you decide to work. And you know what? You reach success. You start to live a life that you dreamt of. And you get to the top. You get to the phase where you finally feel like you've made it. But for some reason, and this happens with a lot of high performers, including something that happened to me, once you reach this level, something just kind of feels off. Things just get a little bit too comfortable. You've got the money, you've got the freedom, and it's uncomfortable actually. It's even something that you're not used to because you've never had this before. And this is what we call the identity upper limit. This is a real term. I want you to look it up. It's very interesting. And it has to do with your identity. It has to do with your nervous system. So we'll go into this a bit later because this is very important to understand. But what happens is that there's a limit that you believe that you can reach. And beyond this, your identity isn't wired for everything that happens beyond here. So this becomes unfamiliar. Excuse my handwriting, guys, but I'm using a computer mouse. Maybe I can use this one. Unfamiliar. Oh, this is even worse. Familiar. You know what I mean. Now, if there's one thing that identity hates, then it is unfamiliar. Nervous system and identity, they don't look at what makes you happy. They look at what is familiar, what keeps you safe. And familiar means safe, and unfamiliar is dangerous. So, subconsciously, you start to self-sabotage. And this goes unnoticed at first. But what you will feel is this nagging feeling, this uncertainty, doubt. You know that something's wrong. You feel wired. You have this chasing feeling when you lay in bed. You wake up in the morning with the same fucking feelings. Like you chase. You're always on. It's hard to be present. And you start slowly self-sabotaging. And this, by the way, this creates a lot of tension, which a lot of high performers, because you make money and you have options, resolve with things like drugs, Could be women, right? Sometimes it's reckless spending. It doesn't really matter what it is, right? But we do all sorts of weird stuff to resolve this tension. But what happens is slowly but surely, some people are able to catch themselves here, and they get back up. But a lot of people, they hit a certain point here, whether it's, like sometimes with your physique, you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, damn, I got fat. I'm gonna need a change. Well, you knew that you were getting fat because you have been going out for dinners, you've been drinking, you've been eating like a fucking piece of shit. And the same thing goes for with your life. You come at a certain point where it's like, damn, there's a panic realization. I need to lock in. Usually something happens. Maybe a girlfriend leaves you. Maybe you get a realization that, clients are not happy with you anymore. Or you see that the money finally is like really going down, and you start to panic and you start to realize, damn, I need to change. And you say things like, I need to lock in. I am going to lock in. And you do. You do. Temporary motivation. We believe we are fixed. We tell ourselves we're going to do it. We are disciplined, right? We start winning. We start using the frustration as a momentum machine. And we work our way back up. And the higher we get, we forget about our issues. And we believe we are back again and we have learned and become better. That's what we truly believe. But we reach that same identity upper limit. Again, it's unfamiliar. It's not safe, not conditioned for this. Identity not programmed for this success, this phase. Don't know what to do. Identity wants to keep safe. It goes back to familiar. Sorry, guys. Goes back to familiar. And we do the same thing. Slow subconscious self-sabotage goes unnoticed. And this self-sabotage, by the way, guys, could mean a lot of things. It could also mean that you have worked your way up to this and you feel extremely empty after reaching this success because of the fact that you have been chasing this thing, believing that it would make you happy. And then you've been here and it doesn't really do anything for you. And that emptiness can also mean that you self-sabotage, right? So, and this self-sabotage goes in so many ways. It could be that you fuck up a relationship, that you start to make wrong decisions in the business. And I'll explain to you why as well, because there's also dopamine part related to this. So we repeat the cycle. You go down, there might be another moment where you make that realization, and then we go up again. Now, there's a lot of different things here at play, okay? There is actually it could be that you are even addicted to becoming, that you could be addicted to the process of making the climb, right? Because that is what your identity thrives under. It's not even that you're addicted to reaching success, it's that you're addicted to this part, because this is familiar to you. This is where you thrive, right? This run up here. That's what I had, for example. So this is where identity thrives. Now, this obviously is a very reactive life because it means that you're constantly reacting to something here on the top, and you're reacting to something here at the bottom. And you're constantly bouncing in between these two. This drawing is getting out of hand, guys, but you understand what I mean. So you're not really in control. You are being led by external events, by things that happen in your life, whether they be at a certain point in your life where you're successful, or whether they be at a certain point in your life where things are not so great. Either way, you are driven by external events. And that means that you are not in control. That means that your happiness, your purpose, everything is determined to things outside of you. And that you can be very disciplined only if you hit a certain point in your life. That means that if you have this, internally, deep down, you don't believe that you could do the same thing when you're here, right? Because you've never done this. You don't know how to create a new sense of urgency or you don't know how to operate from this phase because you've never done it. You only believe that you can operate and be focused from this and be disciplined from here. So this is a very reactive life, okay? A reactive identity needs external conditions to generate internal movement. So pain creates motivation, heartbreak creates discipline. I've seen so many guys, and I've been this as well. I remember my first girlfriend when we broke up. She left for another dude, and I was like, fuck this shit. You know what? I was like 22, I think. And I remember feeling like a little fucking bitch. I remember feeling not good enough, right? And I was like, you know what? Fuck you. I'm going to show you what you're missing. I'm going to show you what the fuck is up. And I was filled with fucking, I had this fire under my fucking ass. And I created a lot of discipline. I became very jacked. I started making a lot of money. And in a lot of ways, that did help me, right? Like it made me, it forced me to do a lot of things. And then eventually 2 years later, I was rich, I was jacked, I was in a penthouse in Dubai. And then she sent me a text on Instagram, and it was kind of a bittersweet ending, like full circle moment. But I also realized at that moment it was just kind of sad, and that I couldn't just keep that. Like, it wasn't good to have that as a motivation. I think it's normal that you have temporary motivation after that, temporary discipline. But obviously, like, you need to be able to do that without having this external event happen in your life, right? Humiliation creates action. Financial pressure creates focus. This is a very big one that I see with a lot of high performers, where they intentionally or subconsciously create financial pressure in order to like create focus. Fear creates productivity. These are just merely examples, guys. Okay? So you unconsciously wait for reality to corner you again because you've never learned how to generate movement from vision, intention, values, internal standards, emotional alignment, and conscious identity. Now, this thing that I'm explaining here, guys, is not for everyone, obviously. But if this resonates with you, then it's most likely the truth. It's most likely true for you, right? This is simply applicable to some people. A lot of high performers struggle with this. A lot of high performers have this. Most people have this in some sort of way, but within, high performers between the ages of 22 to 35, if you're like me, work in the online space, there's a lot of these things are similar, I've noticed. So you only know reaction. Excuse me. This is why many men feel dead when life gets peaceful. They mistake peace for boredom, stability for stagnation, and safety for weakness. Yeah. Now, I mentioned there's also a dopamine component to this as well. So you have to understand that the brain heavily adapts to pursuit, novelty, uncertainty, and intermittent reward. So we like the chase of success. There's nothing wrong with that, right? There's nothing wrong with being content with having to chase something. Like, if I look at my own business, I've worked really hard the past couple months, and now these past couple weeks it's been going really well. I've been making decent money, but the money doesn't really do anything for me. I don't really care about the money too much, but it's also not like it's been good, it's been really good, but it doesn't really. I don't feel anything for that. And I do enjoy that process. I do enjoy the process of building, right? So as men, we're happiest when we're building, but obviously that can also turn into something where it, self-sabotages the success that you have in order to create this same dopamine that was received from this, right, from that chase. So the chase itself becomes chemically rewarding. Once success stabilizes, novelty drops, uncertainty drops, emotional spikes drop. This is why you see so many people, once they make it, they start taking drugs, they start seeking out more in the external because, again, like, there's nothing up there that they believe, there's not really that much that makes you happy at that point. Once you've made it, there's not much money. At a certain point, it helps you get out of a situation. Everyone who's made money knows this, but at a certain point, it also kind of like doesn't really mean that much anymore. You can buy your car and it's nice, and then the car drives really nice, and you'll enjoy it every time you step into it and you drive it. But it's not like that amazing every single time, right? It's not like, damn, like the first time you drive it is nice, but then it kind of loses its flair, like everything, like most things. So this is important to understand as well. And I wrote a little text. There's this crazy good app. It's called Whisperflow. I use this for a lot of things, where I'm just basically, it's like a text, speech to text recorder. And it's really good. So this is a reactive life, constantly following and reacting to external events, never truly being in control of our own lives. This cycle becomes the normal. It becomes wired into our system, into our cognitive and somatic system. So somatic system is basically your nervous system and your body. So identity also lives in your body. A lot of people forget this. They only focus on the cognitive side, but you also have to understand that identity lives in your body. Our mind and nervous system. Our identity needs familiarity, so it recognizes the cycle as a familiar thing. Hence, people feel stuck in a loop that they can't seem to escape, because subconsciously there is a system running the show that you are not aware of. It's about becoming the man that is stable, that creates from within instead of reacts to the external. It's about installing new programs that allow you to grow beyond what is familiar. Here is where visualization, meditating, becoming aware plays a very important role. You have to ask yourself and really understand who you are going to be in a situation that you've never been in before. Because if you don't, then subconsciously you will calibrate back to what is familiar. So you have to kind of understand what you are going to be when you're here. And you have to kind of understand that you have to choose what kind of man you want to be once you reach this. That's very important. And I never did that. So you have to update your inner system, prepare it basically, program it for what is to come before become familiar with the feelings tied to unfamiliarity. So you have to, this is why I'm a big fan of visualization. And when you read books like Letting Go from Dr. Dawkins, for example, or Becoming Superhuman by Dr. Joe Dispenza, they all talk about this. Tony Robbins talks about this as well, priming the body. So it literally means that you prepare yourself for something that you haven't, in reality, experienced yet. Excuse me. Now, a very important thing here is that you need to be able to trust yourself no matter what happens. This is where you create identity. This is why identity formation and shifting your identity to become a more capable person is so important, because your identity right now believes that it will act a certain way when you reach a certain point in your life. Maybe not subconsciously, but this is what your identity believes about you in a certain situation. That's what identity does. Who am I in this specific situation? That's all it does. I will self-sabotage when I have 100K in my bank account, or when I have 1,000,000K, or when I have a good relationship. It will self-sabotage. It will create the thing that it thinks it's supposed to do in order to keep you safe, right? So again, you're battling against something that is biologically designed to keep you safe, especially when you have inner beliefs that you're not able to be capable of holding certain success. That is where it comes from. A lot of people have these inner beliefs that they are not capable of holding their success, that they are not good enough, that they're not worthy, for example, or that life has to be a struggle, that life has to be an uphill battle. You create that scenario subconsciously for yourself, which is why you self-sabotage once you hit success. This is also merely because if you do not believe that you are capable, you have to show yourself that you are capable of holding success. You have to show yourself that you are a capable and confident person no matter what happens in life, that you are stable, whether the ship is going fucking down, or whether there's a storm brewing, or whether the sun is shining and things are great, because both scenarios will test you in different ways. The only thing that is constant is who you are in those scenarios, and that is what matters, and that is what you have to build. That is what you have to figure out. You have to build the man that no matter what happens, knows that he's capable of either fixing it or thriving in that situation. That is what matters, and that is what you have to be able to tell yourself. That is what you have to train your identity for. That is what your identity has to become. Your identity has to become, I am the guy that makes it work. I am the guy that follows through. I am the guy that fixes it. I'm the guy that adapts. I'm the guy that learns. I'm grounded no matter the circumstances. So these are programs, subconscious programs that you have to install in yourself. I thrive in peace, for example. I'm the guy that never gives up. I'm the guy that is open to receive. I'm the guy that accepts blessings. There's a lot of people that don't accept blessings because they don't believe they deserve it. So there's a lot of inner beliefs that are tied to the reason why you have an upper limit with your identity about what is familiar, right? So that is what your identity is supposed to be. But most people have never trained their identity to be this. Most people have never built their identity. They have built their external world. They have gathered skills in order to create success financially in the external, but they have not built what is underneath. They have not built the man that they bring into those situations. Hence the reason they are stuck in this cycle. They keep self-sabotaging. They keep working really hard to reach a certain point, but they never really break through it because they have an identity upper limit based on core beliefs and of years of evidence that the brain has collected, that the nervous system has collected, that the identity has collected, that they are the guy that acts in a certain way when things get good, when things get peaceful, when they hit success. So this is literally me spitting my thoughts this morning, why I wanted to create this video. Now, something that we do in the program that we have, because this is one of the things that we discuss in my program, for example, on how to change your identity, because most of the guys that work with me, they've already tried everything. They are disciplined. Like, these are smart and intelligent guys. And they know that they could be better. They know they were aware of these things, but they still feel they're in a cycle. And by the way, this whole thing, right, this whole cycle, it's very important that you are able to zoom out. So becoming aware of this pattern is very important. And what you'll notice more often than not is that when you become aware of this pattern, when you decide to zoom out, it's interesting if you take the past 10 years of your life and you see how often you've reached this pattern, how and where this shows up. It shows up in relationships, it shows up in business, maybe it shows up in your health. I mean, I know a lot of people, for example, and I did this myself as well, where you get to a certain point with health where you're like, damn, I need a change. And you work your way up and you become jacked as fuck, right? And then you don't even know what it is like to be jacked. And then they start fucking eating like a piece of shit again. And they basically get back to this point where they then decide like, oh damn, I need to get jacked again. Summer is coming. I need to be able to look good, you know? So this pattern, now I need you to kind of figure out where in your life does this pattern show up every time? Where do you see it happening? And then recognize that pattern, because the only way to break the pattern in the first place is to understand that it's there. If you don't think, or if you're not aware that it's there, then it's obviously always going to just govern your life without you knowing. This is what Carl Jung says about making the subconscious conscious. If you don't do that, then it will always govern your life and you will just simply call it fate. Now, so how do you change it? You have to reconstruct identity and nervous system recalibration. So what you have to learn is how to tolerate peace, how to tolerate enoughness, how to tolerate stability, how to tolerate consistency, how to tolerate being loved without performing, how to tolerate success without collapsing, how to tolerate calm without manufacturing urgency, right? These are all things that you will need to learn, that you will need to uncover. Now, again, how do you do this? These are the things that you need to basically add, right? But the only way that you can add certain things is if you first remove the things that are no longer serving you. Because if you just simply add this, while you still have your inner core beliefs that are not serving you, then this is not going to work, all right? So my whole idea, my philosophy is subtracting first before you add something new. Whereas a lot of people, when it comes to identity change, for example, they only focus on who do you want to become? And this works, right? So you need to envision who you want to become. It's like people say, figure out who you want to become and then start acting like that person. Well, you know who you want to become, right? I think this is such fucking bullshit, because it's like, yeah, but why is it then that so many people still sabotage? Because it's not like you consciously wake up today or tomorrow, any day of the week, and decide, you know what, this relationship is a little bit too peaceful. Let me create some fucking drama. You don't do this consciously, right? So saying just figure out who you want to become and then start acting like that person sounds really nice, but it's not how it works. You have to become aware of the things that are currently running the show, that are currently holding you from actually doing this. Because what you'll notice, there is a universal law. Space, the universe, right? It hates a vacuum. All right? Sorry, guys. You just have to stay with me here. It hates a vacuum, okay? So what happens is that once you remove these things, space clears up. And open space needs to be filled. So what will automatically happen if you do the right inner work, if you have the right guidance and the right techniques and the right stuff, this will automatically start to fill up that empty space. You'll automatically start to understand what you really want to be. You automatically start to understand where you really want to go once this is removed from your life. So you'll automatically start filling in that empty space with these positive things, right? With new things. That is just simply how nature works, how your identity works. And then you can start designing this future. You can start designing the new programs. And then once you've done that, then you can start acting like that, all right? And then it still takes a long time before you actually even get to the point where it's normal, where it becomes your new identity, because identity is formed over consistently making new decisions incongruent with the old identity. So you have a pattern that is stuck in your identity, in your nervous system, right? And you have to take the time to consistently make different decisions compared to what you used to do, in order for your brain and your nervous system to basically eventually accept this new identity. Because again, it doesn't look at what makes you happy, it looks at what makes you feel safe. It looks at a pattern, it looks at familiarity. And if the new decisions consistently are made, then that becomes a new familiar. So then your nervous system and your identity basically calibrate to this new choice. So you have to use a tiny 5% of your brain that is conscious to make these new decisions. right? This is why it's hard. And you have an identity and a subconscious that is fighting against you because it's wired to keep you safe. So this is a period where you have to go through this, where you consciously have to fight against your old identity, where you have to make the exact opposite decision of what your old identity would do. And once you do that long enough, eventually this will catch up, and then you create a new foundational identity that you can build from, right? And that is advanced inner work. And once you do that, you'll start to notice that success and stuff doesn't require you to have this run up of just fighting and struggle and this and that, because a lot of guys have this where they believe that life has to be a struggle, right? That life has to be a fight, and it always has to be sacrifice, which is not necessarily the case. And you'll start to see that things like discipline and consistency and purpose and success and peace, they start to arise as a result of your new identity instead of it having to be something that you have to gain, like that you have to chase for. Which is really great because it means that you can then start creating from a new level of frequency, a frequency that isn't determined by fear or by rejection, but a frequency that is built upon peace and safety and love, basically. And it helps you be much more creative. It helps you to get into flow state. It helps you to live and lead yourself much better. So this is basically what it is. Once you do this, you start becoming, you start creating from within instead of you reacting from external events. And external events won't shake you as they did before. So something might happen, but because you've trained your new identity system, a new identity, you'll react differently because now you know that you're the guy that will follow through. You know, your identity knows I'm the guy that does this. I'm the guy that fixes it. There's no need to panic. There's no need to sabotage. There's no need to do anything because we're stable. We're grounded. We don't let ourselves be shaken by an external event. Okay. And that is where once you reach that point, you become performance becomes very, very high. Your energy becomes very, very high. And that is what identity work really does. This is how you break the cycle, guys. I wanted to come on because I had a couple of calls this morning about this with some of my clients. And it is something that I see with a lot of high performers. And I wish that someone told me this when I was going through my own rough and tumble, basically. Because sometimes just seeing it is the first step into changing it. And most people don't even see it. So I hope that this video gives you some clarity into how you are running on patterns. Like, again, this is not for everyone. This is for people that really resonate with this, that understand, like, that feel that there is a version of them that is more capable, that feel this pattern, that feel that they're stuck. And again, sometimes it takes years, right? Sometimes these cycles take years for you to realize that you're in a cycle. My cycle took like 4 years, and it took me 2 or 3 times, 3 times to hit that rock bottom moment to then finally realize, like, wait, what the fuck? I'm in this cycle. I don't want to be in this cycle. So the first time was when I reckon that my ex left me. The second time was when I hit rock bottom all the way. This was my last one, basically, which really made me understand these kind of patterns, which made me dive deep into this. So if you want to know more about this, guys, this is what I help high-performing men with. This is what I do. You can achieve everything. You can chase less, do less, and achieve much more if you understand how to rewire yourself from the inside out. And instead of always seeking the solutions on the outside and always chasing the next big thing, never really being happy, always being restless, always needing something in order to push you forward to be disciplined, it's not a way of life. It doesn't allow you to be present. It doesn't allow you to experience life to the fullest of your abilities. And it doesn't allow you to be the best version that you can be. And that's not what I want. So if you want to know more about this, there's a link down in the description where you can find more information about how I work, what I do. If you want to work with me, you can apply. I go through every application myself because I am, at this point, just really, I want to work with guys that I want to work with that are ready for this work as well, because it's inner identity work, right? And once you do, you will lift the blindfold off. You'll see life in a different way because you finally get the answers to so many of the questions that have been holding you back. But you can fill out the form. Like I said, I go through everything, every application myself. If it's something that I believe that I can help you with, then I will reach out to you personally. If not, then that is the answer as well. So guys, hope this video helped, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.